Hello and welcome to FPL News with me, Rich, aka Rocky and Chester, as we edge towards the end of Game Week 23. When I set out to do a Game Week video for this Game Week 23, with only Watford and Burnley left to play, I did not expect the average of the FPL community at the moment to be about 20 points for the game week. And I've seen on FPL Twitter some game week scores of 10 or even less. So I myself am on 23 points. It's not my worst ever score, which was 19 points back in the 2012-2013 season. So that's good at least. But yeah, I was thinking about doing a scores at the doors video, sort of a state of play video, but I think that feels far too depressing. Therefore, I've called this episode of FPL News Keeping the Faith for two reasons. First one being, this is quite a low point, I think, in the year for a lot of people. A few weeks ago, I think last Monday we had Blue Monday, which I think is statistically the most depressing Monday in the year for a lot of people in the UK. I think it's to do with the lack of daylight, post-Christmas, the weather, people in debt. And in terms of keeping the faith, going back to the title, I've also called it that because I'm looking at goalkeepers in this episode, and Nick Pope in particular. I know goalkeepers are a bit of a hot topic at the moment. A lot of people think about playing their second wildcard. So I thought we'd take a drill down into goalkeepers, who's the best option going forward, and yeah. So stay with me as we look at keeping the faith in Game Week 20. Okay, so I've called this episode "Keeping the Faith." As I mentioned, it is a tough time of year, I think, for us in general. Sort of end of January, and obviously we've got Nick Pope, a previous fantasy Premier League legend from seasons gone by. As we took a bit of a deeper dive as to Nick Pope as an option going forward for this 21-22 season. So I know a very popular goalkeeper for this season has been Sanchez, the Brighton Hove Albion goalkeeper. I myself have got him as one of two what I thought were playing keepers. But I know a lot of people are starting to look now at Nick Pope, who for Burnley have got the most games in hand out of any of the Premier League teams. So there's a potential upside there to steal a march on some of your mini league rivals. So I take a deeper dive on essentially Sanchez versus Pope in the goalkeeper rundown. So for a starter for 10, we've got the fixtures available for the rest of the season. So as you can see, we've got two fixtures in hand for Sanchez at Brighton, with the Tottenham game and Man United game yet to be rescheduled. Whereas for Nick Pope, there are 4 games in hand. One against Tottenham, one against Aston Villa, one against Everton, and one against Leicester. So it's the 4 games in hand versus 2, which is a bit of an upside. It's probably also worth us looking at their prices as well. So obviously Sanchez for Brighton at the 4.6 mark. He started the season at 4.5 million, crept up to 4.6. Nick Pope started the season at 5.5 million, has dropped down to 5.4. Those of you who are relatively new to Fantasy Premier League might be wondering why Nick Pope started the season at 5.5 million. One of the main reasons for that was the fact that a couple of seasons ago, he was a standout goalkeeper. He was the Martinez Aston Villa goalkeepers of last year. I think it was 2, potentially 3 seasons ago. He was phenomenal. He started the season at 4.5, probably ended up at 5.2, 5.3, something like that. Hence his starting price at 5.5 million for the last 2 seasons. So, yeah, as a starter for 10, you've obviously got Pope with more fixtures than Sanchez. But let's take a bit of a deeper dive in terms of their statistics. So Robert Sanchez obviously played 20 games, so more than Nick Pope. obviously think that with 15, Nick Pope hasn't even played all of the games for Burnley. But what I've done here, I've got sort of two tables. These are all stats that are free to get online. A lot of them from the official Fantasy Premier League site. So let's just start with total points and move down. So total points 75. So Robert Sanchez wins that, hence why I've got it as green. But obviously, it's probably not a fair comparison because he's played more games than Nick Pope. Interestingly, they've both got the average points per game of 3.6 points a match per game. So that's quite an interesting metric. So it will probably tell you, we're over halfway through the season now, so that's a fair metric to play them by for the two teams. Moving down, obviously, Sanchez 6 clean sheets to Nick Pope's 4. Again, you've got to sort of trade that off with the fact that Sanchez has played 5 more games to Nick Pope, so bear that in mind. Interestingly, though, goals against. So Robert Sanchez, 20 goals against versus Nick Pope's 21. So Nick Pope has conceded more goals despite playing 5 Premier League games fewer. So that's quite a glaring statistic for me. So keep moving down. Total saves 60 for Sanchez versus Pope's 51. Again, if Pope plays 5 more games, does he get 9 saves? Quite potentially there. Shots on targets against 74. Shots on targets against for Pope 65. It is quite a big one actually. That it's probably a bigger if you're a scout or you're someone looking to recruit a goalkeeper. Save percentage here. So Sanchez 75.7, so nearly 76% save percentage versus Nick Pope 67.7. I think that's quite a big swing, and that's quite telling. And that probably feeds quite nicely into the goals against per 90 minutes. So Sanchez 1, so averaging, not making a clean sheet. However, with the saves and the save points that we get in Fantasy Premier League, plus the bonus points, that's not bad. So he's averaging 1 goal against, whereas Nick Pope nearly a goal and a half, 1.4 goals against per 90. And I've got there finally fixtures remaining. Sanchez is 16 versus Pope's 19. I think, though, with those stats in mind, it's worth bearing in mind where both Brighton and Hove Albion and Burnley are in the table. So Burnley are currently rooted at the bottom of the table at 20th. Like I said, worth bearing in mind they have the most games left to play out of anyone in the Premier League. But Brighton are having a great season, as we know. Potter is a good manager. They're a good outfit. They're well drilled, and they play good football. They're currently 9th. And even if we just look at the recent form here, I've just taken these screenshots from the official Premier League website. Brighton, in their last 5, a draw, win, draw, draw, draw. Whereas Burnley, lost, draw, lost, lost, draw. So at the moment, everything's pointing to Sanchez. Probably also worth bearing in mind the fact that Sanchez is 0.8 million cheaper as well. However, I've thrown this curveball in for our keeper debate. Why not both? So what I've done here is I've pulled up the fixtures for both players for the rest of the season, and in my opinion, not 100% driven by the official Premier League's fixture difficulty rating, which is that sort of coloured metric, sort of light green easiest, and sort of that dark maroon or red colour being the most difficult, but also from my sort of experience and from my gut feeling. So I've thought, okay, why not have both? And by both, I mean obviously have one as a bench playing keeper, which is I'm not a big fan of. I'll be honest. About 5 or 6 years ago, maybe it was longer, I bought David De Gea and Liverpool's goalkeeper Mingale at the time because I figured I could be clever and have 2 premium goalkeepers and rotate them depending on fixture difficulty. It was an absolute nightmare. I think by the end of the season, I must have been about 20 or 30 points down. It was one of those where if one of the two players had the easier fixture, I played that keeper. Let's say it was David De Gea, and Sod's Law, he conceded one, got no save points, got no bonus points, and ended up on 2 points. Whereas the Liverpool goalkeeper at the time, Mingale, with the more difficult fixture, let's say against like a top 4 side like a Chelsea, would get save points, penalty save points. It was a rough ride for me. So since that point, I've never had 2 playing goalkeepers. However, I really feel that this season is a complete sort of outlier, given the state of the fixtures we've seen written off and postponed with COVID, and given the that volatility of the late nature of the cancellations. I think this is the first season I can remember, after playing for about 12 seasons, that it's probably worth considering having 2 playing goalkeepers and having that headache. So as we compare Sanchez to Pope, obviously I've got Sanchez at the moment. I don't have Pope, just to clarify. I've got Barkman as my second goalkeeper. For game week 24, which is next game week, I haven't actually got a playing goalkeeper at the moment. So it's a shout for Pope. Okay, they're playing Man United at home, but it's still, you'd like to think at least 2 points instead of none. But going forward, I think they're really nice back-to-back playing goalkeepers to have. As you can see, Robert Sanchez, Brighton, game weeks 25, 26, they have Watford away and Burnley at home. I think they're 2 quite nice fixtures for, I think it's fair to say, an informed Brighton, who have caused upsets this season and frustrated some of the bigger teams. So a good side. Whereas if you weigh that off to Pope, who's got Liverpool at home, and obviously Brighton, so he'd be up against Sanchez in that fixture. Moving down, I've got a question mark. So if I'm ever not sure of the 2 keepers, I've put a question mark, and for me it's probably a flip of the coin. So Sanchez, so Brighton have got game week 27. Brighton have got Villa at home, whereas Burnley have got Crystal Palace away. So that's a tough one. You might just want to go home versus away on that one. Probably on form, you might go with Pope on that one and Palace away. But as you can see, moving down, game week 28, Sanchez plays Newcastle, a nice plum fixture compared to Pope's Chelsea at home. And then this is a big one for me. Game weeks 29 and 30, Sanchez plays Liverpool at home and Manchester City away. So pretty much the 2 hardest fixtures you can think about. Whereas Burnley and Nick Pope play Brentford away and Southampton at home. So 2 pretty good fixtures. And again, moving down to game week 31, Sanchez plays Norwich at home, whereas Pope plays City at home. So I think they alternate quite nicely through that period. Again, going down to game week 32, Sanchez plays Arsenal away, but Burnley and Nick Pope play Norwich away. So again, a lovely sort of rotation, I think, certainly between, for me, game week 24, which is next game week as I record this podcast, this YouTube video, down to game week 32. That seems like a fair one. I think after that it does go a bit blurred. I've got some question marks here. So Tottenham away versus West Ham away. That's for me is 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Southampton at home, Wolves at home. Again, I think that's a tough one, but it's certainly one to think about, especially with Pope. I guess a caveat I must add is, obviously I've done these comparisons between Sanchez and Pope, Brighton versus Burnley, with the fixtures that we know have been planned. But it is worth mentioning that there are 2 fixtures for Brighton yet to be scheduled, and the same goes for Burnley, but they have 4. So obviously, wherever I've put a question mark or a tick for one, obviously if that becomes a double game week, that does change things. But I think for those of you like myself who are potentially chasing people in a tough mini league, it might be worth getting Pope or potentially both. On this slide, I'm just having a quick look, a bit of a drill down into my own team. So those of you who've watched my last couple of videos, I played my wildcard game week 21, so a couple of game weeks ago. So my sort of retrospective at this stage is Barkman as a Watford goalkeeper. I think I just thought for his price point and the fact that Foster was out, sorry, not Foster. Foster was out, was that he was a good buy with the double coming up. I was a bit foolish and lucky with the fact that Foster was out with COVID, the current game week. Obviously, I wish him all the best and hope he gets better soon. But as a Barkman owner, lucky. But that was I put that as an uninformed punt really at a second playing keeper. I've got Diop for West Ham, who's been very good and pretty solid in Zuma's absence, but Zuma has returned to the starting 11 for West Ham this game week. So I've put that was a good short-term option, but ultimately a transfer waiting to happen. Yeah, I've also added that, look, as a lot of people have, I wildcarded and I tripled up on Everton. I thought that their fixtures would bring about form. It's the age-old fixtures versus form debate. Really hoping that the fixtures would kick Everton into life. It's yet to be. I've had own goals from Keane, penalty misses from Calvert-Lewin, Gray doing diddly squat. So at the moment, I am viewing them on the whole as a half decent playing bench. Playing Calvert-Lewin probably because he's the one that certainly has the highest ceiling, as we know. Hopefully, he's still on penalties. But I'll be honest, if I was on wildcard right now, I would certainly remove all three. But looking on the sort of the positives, I think of certainly Gray and Keane as like a playing bench at the moment. So moving on, I guess the only success, not the only success, but one of the successes from my wildcard was Kevin De Bruyne. Was pleased with the 8 points this week, and before that last minute Watford double game week was announced. My captaincy was on Kevin De Bruyne, so 2020 hindsight and all that, but yeah, would have been nice to get his 16 points, sort of 8 double to 16, rather than Dennis's -1 double to -2. But Celavi, and I know a lot of us are in the same boat, and that's why we love FPL. It's all these fine calls. So certainly for me, Kevin De Bruyne to stay, and I think with Salah coming back from the African Cup of Nations, I'd like to keep Kevin De Bruyne and get Salah back in. As we can see, that there aren't that many premium forwards at the moment that we're going for. Not that many people on the likes of Ronaldo and Kane or Lukaku. So I'd be looking to keep Kevin De Bruyne as I get Salah back in as he when he returns from AFCON. And as I've added there, yeah, Jota for me personally, Jota, Maddison or Gray make ways for Salah. Hopefully, some of these sort of dilemmas that are coming up for me are sort of the things that you guys are also contemplating at the moment. And then finally, off the back of my research for this video, I am very tempted to do Bachmann to Pope. Obviously, I've got Sanchez as my other goalkeeper, but I'm seriously thinking about both. So my conclusion, as we saw from the stats earlier, from a head-to-head, Sanchez beats Pope hands down. Yes, they both average the same amount of points per game, but in terms of the X goals against and percentage likelihoods of a clean sheet, I think Sanchez. It's fair to say that Sanchez is much better than Pope. Also, Sanchez is 0.8 million cheaper, and Brighton are in the top half of the table, where Burnley are currently rooted. Oh, to the bottom. Okay, Burnley have got a few games in hand, but still they win. They win half of those games. They're still bottom three kind of fodder. Let's be honest. I've added there, yeah, Pope has the 4 picks in hand. So if you're an upside kind of guy or gal, and you really feel like that's something you can maybe potentially steal a march on, then maybe look into Pope. However, as I mentioned on my last slide, if you are fancying 2 playing keepers, I think Pope and Sanchez are a decent double up with the fixtures, so as I showed previously. There's some tricky fixtures for one, where the other one actually have quite nice sort of green fixtures. So, as I say, I wouldn't normally recommend 2 playing goalkeepers, but I really feel this season, don't want to use the word unprecedented, but it feels even more volatile even than the 2021 season last year. So I'm certainly thinking it myself with my free transfer, with nothing else really on the cards. So yeah, give it some thought. Anyway, I hope you found a little bit of use from that video, and hopefully it can help you and your FPL team. If you have liked this video, please like and subscribe. My handle is at Rocky and Chester, and I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Have a great game week. Well, if you've got any players playing left. If not, don't worry about it. There's always next game week. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Any questions or comments at all in the video, please drop one in the chat below, and I'll endeavour to get back as soon as possible. Cheers, guys. Have a great one. Take care. Bye.